if you walked into a party and every single famous conservationist that's ever lived is in there, and you have a magic power that the first person you talk to will really like you and be your friend, be genuine connection, who would you go up and talk to first?
Wait, so in other words, whoever I choose out of that room gets to be my
personal close friend.
Personal close friend.
I mean, we're talking, the people we already know well, like Doug Duran. You're talking Steve Vernella. You're talking Leopold. You're talking Lacey.
I used to like really aspire to meet a lot of my heroes, and I have gotten to meet a lot of my heroes. And
that's true.
And I think pretty much in every case I've always enjoyed them. And you talk about like Doug, I enjoyed Doug's content. He's going to hate me saying this. I enjoyed Doug's voice and the way he looked at things for a long time before I met him, and now
but then you met him.
Doug is one of my dearest friends. We talk probably almost every day, and along those lines, I've learned that I like Doug so much, and I share so much in common with Doug, not because he has done all these incredible things, which he has, but because he's Doug, and I just like Doug.
He's a cool hang. He's a fun hang.
And so to that, I would say that I find that the people that I'm most thankful to be their friend are the people that in some grassroots way I become their friend. You know what I mean? So like, man, I got a lot of great friends, but I'd have my best friend if I could meet Abraham Lincoln. It just doesn't generally work that way. Yeah. And so
that's not what I'm saying though.
I would. Well, what do you mean?
That's not
just
the question.
Like you can add to your friendships. Like you
so
can
I don't.
bring
So in
somebody.
other words, I don't have to count the people I'm already friends with.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
you're
what
not
I thought.
discounting
That's what
Doug and Travis.
Yeah. So okay. So if I could add one friend out of all the greatest conservationists, that'd be a simple way to look at it. I think. Leopold would be really great. The thing about Leopold is, I think what makes him awesome is that he was kind of at least through reading him and learning about him, is he seems like he was kind of a loner, kind of
just outside a lot.
Well, and just tight with his family, and look at his little cabin. You know what I mean? That we were in the shack. So yeah, I would love to be his friend. I think a person though that remains somewhat obscure, although very important and very pragmatic, big regulation guy, which I'm kind of a big regulation guy.
I know you are.
Somebody who was very important, but seemingly never sought out any level of fame. And not that I don't think Leopold did either. In fact, St. County Almanac was published after he died by his children. So his most famous work. I think, and this person, from a practical standpoint, kind of preserved what was left of America's wildlife. You know what I'm going with?
Yeah.
And this person was had the chance to really be like, oh, look at how great I was. And people barely even know who he was.
Yeah.
John F. Lacey.
I know, that was my pick because he got some stuff done. I thought you were going to go Leopold because you're more of a muser. You like to muse.
Yeah, I like to riff and do, and I'm a dreamer. And so was Leopold. So I think I'd love to choose Leopold as well. He's also another Iowegian. He's from Burlington, Iowa, is where he grew up. I think, I don't know. And sometimes when you're too much of the same kind of person, you don't necessarily, get super close.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think Lacey, just his humility. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was an arrogant jerk. But I think he
wasn't. He kind of a difficult person?
I don't think so. I think I've never come across. There's truly not much information out there about him. When you go trying to dig up information on John Lacey, you run into the same stories over and over again, right?
Yeah.
There's just truly not much there. So I don't think he was very self-promoting, But that being said, I guess he ran for public office. So
yeah. It takes a special person.
I think a lot of people would be like Teddy Roosevelt right away. I think most people would hate hanging around Teddy Roosevelt. I think he would be in person. I think he would be very self-centered. I think he'd be very.
He's kind of like a grumpy guy.
He would have like big highs and low lows. You know what I mean? Like when his wife died, giving birth to his his first wife, when she died, giving birth to, I believe it was their first child, his daughter. He just handed his daughter off to his sister and moved out to North Dakota to be on his own ranch. I mean,
yeah. I remember talking to your dad about him, and your dad was like, "Yeah, I really couldn't even finish the biography. I just really did not like who I was learning Teddy Roosevelt to be," which is kind of interesting.
I'm not saying that to crap on TR. I just think a realistic assessment as to how good of a friend he'd be. I don't think he'd be a great friend. I'm extremely thankful for him. And sometimes through history, it takes those overbearing, bombastic, maybe even a little narcissistic personalities at times to do things to a limit, right? Like I think there's a point where the toxicity that comes from those things just that's all you get from it is garbage. But so I think that TR overall was, very thankful that he was a president, and very thankful he was conservation minded, and very thankful for the work he got done.
My wife and I, we've talked about this a bunch, but like in the New Testament, it talks about all these heroes of the Old Testament in the Bible.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to hang out with almost any of those people.
What chapter and book, Nicolas?
Hebrews 11.
There aren't 11 chapters in Hebrews.
Yes, there are.
I'm just kidding. It is Hebrews 11.
Man, forcing me to virtue signal
gaslighting you about the Bible.
Yeah. But you
what would your buddy Phil, your imaginary friend Phil, say? He'd say, "I'm going to answer for that one." So
no, my friend Phil,
give an account for that.
You're going to account for that one because it says like you'll account for every idle word, which is more just like an accountability for how we use our words, right? And if you say something instead of being like, "Hey, you shouldn't have said that," he'll like laugh and be like, "You're going to account for that one, man." It keeps you thinking. But the point being, like, some of those heroes in the Old Testament, it's like, were they good? I believe they were good, but also they seemed like difficult humans. Like I'm not trying to hang out with some of them. Anyway, Riley, who do you got?
I'm gonna throw a curveball here because I think everybody's heard the classic Leopold TR. I would say for both selfish and my own reasons, Albert Bierstadt. He's a Western painter from Germany.
Definitely wasn't on my radar.
You've seen his paintings. He did oil paintings for Scenes in the West.
Okay, I think I know who you're talking about. Was he kind of a competitor with who's the guy who did all the Native American paintings? Bob Jackson referenced him when we interviewed him. I'm going to look it up.
I'm going to kick myself later. Yeah, you look it up. But he did a lot of Western paintings, and I think selfishly, I would love to be friends with him because I would have loved to have seen what he saw. What inspired that kind of stuff. And I think I've got kind of a soft place in my heart for environmentalists who are, like you say, changing.
George Catlin.
Catlin and him kind of basically were the people at the time, I guess, for Western painting that I think of. And they both saw incredible things, and after some of those environments were gone, helped actually, push a memory of, it might have been a little bit idyllic.
That's a great answer.
But here's what we had.
It's closest we have to a photograph, a color photograph.
Yeah, for the time,
what
especially.
Yeah.
Nobody was taking 4K drone shots in the 1850s.
That's true. And we what do they call it? Where the kids today will only ever fight for what they know as a child.
Recency bias.
Recency bias. They're not going to fight for what we knew when we were a kid. But he went out of his way to preserve something to fight for.
So a friend of ours, Josh Russell, is that how you say his last name?
Sorry, Josh.
Yeah, sorry,
No
Josh.
idea.
It's a cool last name though. I like it.
You sure it wouldn't? It's probably Rossell.
Yeah, I think
Just
it's
like
Russell. Yeah,
Russell.
I bet before it was Americanized, it was probably Russell or something. Anyways,
Compass Ecological. He owns Compass Ecological, which does a bunch of restoration work in like Des Moines greater area.
He, back in the early days of AI image generation, he kind of stirred up the Prairie community online by asking ChatGPT or whatever it was.
That was
at
him?
the time.
I remember Lance shared it, but
Yeah, a lot of people shared it to generate an image of what a oak savanna would have looked like. And I think it's interesting how so many people took such interest in that because, I mean, this is obviously very niche, but in the Prairie community, I remember a lot of people would, when you'd be out walking around with them or talking with them, they'd be like, yeah, I just kind of wish I knew what an oak savanna really looked like, you know? And to Riley's point, how important the few images we have, or even sometimes not the images, but the written descriptions of those landscapes, we treasure those things. So that's a great answer, Riley.
It's kind of, my wife and I, we talk about like what we find attractive in other humans, not just like sexually. I just mean like in general, like what do we find attractive? And my answer, I've been thinking about it now for years because we'll talk about it like, oh, I find that trait really attractive.
Nick's getting into looks maxing, by the way.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows me
The
knows
podcast is about to take a hard left turn here. Hard left turn. I'm not ready for
whey
this.
protein.
Whenever he
has
does,
given us
whenever
the
we
budget.
have these online meetings, like he always has this weird filter on his face to have like his super
I have like a big old jaw.
square jaw. It's very strange.
Dude, I'm Asian. I'm destined to have the roundest head on the team. And somehow some people on the team beat me. I don't know. I've kind of boiled it down to I subconsciously, I'll put different tags on it, but I am attracted to health. And we all are. Whether you can see it physically, emotionally, they're just like a whole human that can handle themselves in difficult situations. And I think the same, that's what I thought of when I saw those photos for the first time. I'm like, I'm attracted to this photo because this landscape looks healthy. And it was like, my subconscious just knew like, oh, that's healthy. That's what.
Yeah, isn't it weird how when you and I suppose it's more acute for us because we spend so much time and money pulling weeds. But when you see like a weed patch where there's no native plants and it's nothing but like foxtail and like thistles and something, you just like, even though there's diversity there, you don't get that feeling of health. You're like, oh, that is sick.
Yeah, that is. Or imbalance, and it's like a subconscious thing that we're looking for around us because we're just the world's so like sick in a lot of ways, and not just fully. I'm not being a pessimist. There's a lot of beauty in it, but there's a lot of like sickness. So when we see health, we go, oh,
it stands apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, we should. I wasn't planning on that taking so long. We should.
You didn't give your answer.
I didn't answer mine. Okay, so I actually was thinking about
John
this.
F. Lacey would like me better, but you can still choose it.
Would he?
No, probably. Well, yeah,
I don't know.
he's a big regulation guy. You're not.
He probably would have. But I have been to many national parks, and I feel deep gratitude for him. No, I was thinking I should have looked this person up, but on the drive over here, I was thinking about this. I would pick whoever thought up the Soil and Water Commission.
So that was FDR.
Yeah, it was under FDR, but whoever was on his team,
name, another guy, I can't think of his name.
Because it was so impactful and it was so correct.
I want to give this guy credit.
You know what I mean? Like, when was the last time that the world experienced a dust bowl? Because it's happened many times, right? Droughts and stuff like that throughout the ancient world. When was the last time someone finally went, we need to get plants? We need to. These are the steps we need to do. We need to
Hugh
have
Bennett.
Hugh Bennett. Okay, yes, I'm so grateful to that dude.
Yeah, he was very crucial. His interests and experiences and willingness to like follow latest best practice.
Yeah.
As not just by this is what we have always done, but what is science starting to tell us?
Well, and
he helped get us out of the Dust Bowl.
It said, I mean, obviously there's been like a lot of tillage and we have drought issues and like we actually have a climatologist coming on soon and he is so interesting, guys. We already interviewed him. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But so obviously there are issues there, but I have this like subconscious safety net that I know that
was a great
we
choice,
figured
too.
this out once before, we can do it again. So even though that stuff bothers me that it's going on, I'm like, if it gets bad enough, we'll like, yeah. So I'm very grateful to him, and he probably cost a bunch of people a lot of money. Every time you put regulation in, you do, or add some sort of commission, it does.
Also creates opportunities, though, too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, well, Hugh Bennett, that was my pick, and we should jump on in. Coffee Time Wednesdays with the Prairie Farm Podcast.
Can't hit us with the jingle.
Do-do-do-do-do.
Friends, the prairie's getting tall. It's getting time. The birds are a whistling and a chirping, and that means it is almost hunting season. So if you enjoy walking through the tall grass, pulling ticks off of yourself, and hanging out with your dogs, we highly recommend going to birdhuntersupply.com. Now, I understand if you want to be out on the landscape, you don't necessarily want to just hang out on a website, but Dr. Russ Benedict was correct when he said the prairie was actually a very adverse place and we need to be prepared. So prepare yourself for your hunting season, your trail walking season, and your bird dog hunting season at birdhuntersupply.com. They've got everything you need for yourself on the bird hunting and everything you need for your bird dog. We highly recommend. The assortment of equipment that they provide on there is extensive and far above my head, but they have exactly what you need. Not only will they take care of you in that, but they actually help take care of the land as well. When I was talking to the owners, they said, we actually donate a certain amount of money to conservation every single year. And I asked them, oh, do you have a donation button at the end where people can donate when they check out, which is really common? And he said, no, we actually donate from our profits. So they literally take their earned profits and donate that to conservation efforts because they care. They want to see the landscape have habitat and stay healthy for future generations. Highly, highly recommend birdhuntersupply.com. Welcome back to the Prairie Farm Podcast, Coffee Time Wednesday. I'm your favorite host, Nicolas Lirio. Favorite co-host, Ken Boucher.
Hey.
Favorite co-host to the coast, Riley Rosendahl.
Howdy, howdy.
Dang it, I should have used another language. I know that.
Yeah, Jim,
Ni hao.
is that a real one?
I think that's Chinese. Hello.
Konnichiwa, and there's like 3 ins in there, is good afternoon in Japanese or just hello. I guess it can just mean anyway.
You should have saved it for another pod.
No. I learned conversational Japanese because I had a crush on a girl in college, and as soon as we were not going on dates anymore, I was done with the Japanese language.
How long did you learn it for?
Maybe 2 months. And I studied more intensely than I've ever studied anything in my life.
I want to ask you to like give us a phrase, but 2 months just isn't enough to know anything.
No, and
you just gave us.
It was
the
like
extent.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
So no. I mean, I used to have note cards. They were actually in a backpack I had in my house till like several months ago.
Going hard.
No, I bought like $300 of booklets. Yes, I was going very hard. I did like the kindergarten trace thing.
And then she
like,
saw you eat a 4-day-old Chick-fil-A sandwich. Unrefrigerated.
Some things don't change.
Who cares why we broke up? You know? Oh man, that's funny. Anyway, moving on.
He actually said something horribly insulting in Japanese and had no idea.
That ended it right there.
No, this girl wasn't Japanese. She just was obsessed with Japan and lived there for a while.
Yeah, but I'm saying you were talking to her in Japanese and you said something horrible.
No, she would always laugh at my Japanese. She said I was terrible at it. All right, we got 2 major things, as I'm sure you saw in the title. First of all, as all of you guys are curious about, Farm Bill. Blah, blah.
What does that sound mean?
It means that in the Senate it has been stalled and it did not pass, and we need to pass by, I believe, the end of September if we're going to keep something, or they'll have to patchwork it again, or just not. But and they will, and here's why: 80 to 83% of the farm bill goes to SNAP. So yes, we are interested in the CRP that's in there. We're interested in the crop insurance that's in there, but the vast majority goes to SNAP. It's a little above my pay grade, but here's the deal. Basically, the Republican it lost 10-11. That's how close it was in the committee. The Republican members of the committee said, we want the states that have a high error rate in SNAP to have to help fund the SNAP going into their state. To be honest, I didn't look further into that because I don't really want to argue about SNAP on this podcast that much. But a lot of, they're not that motivated to get it done because a ton of what normally is in the Farm Bill was in the big, beautiful bill. And as you guys heard with Kevin Kincaid, a lot of issues going to be smacking rural America with the big, beautiful bill, including some things that they left out of it that they're now trying to pass in the Farm Bill. But basically, no one cares about the CRP stuff. It's hardly talked about. They're just arguing over SNAP. It's just collateral damage. And so that was as of Thursday, August 6th, which is almost a week ago when you're listening to this. And then they immediately went on a recess. So that was good. Big fan. What do you guys think?
I listened to a podcast on this recently, and I believe that they were talking about Arizona, which I think, I don't know, have some states already been put into that status where they've had to fund it themselves?
That's a great question. I don't know. That did not come up in the two articles that I read.
Anyways, it's a disaster going on in Arizona right now with SNAP.
Okay. Why is that?
People who should get those benefits, like the red tape aspect of it and paperwork aspect of it has gotten so bad. And the people that are taking people's cases to like appeal, like, hey, you know, I used to get this. I'm still in the same circumstance. And when you hear everyone always, I think an unfortunate thing is a lot of people look at our social programs and assume that people are just lazy and that's why they're in that circumstance. And that's just not true. I mean, yeah, there's definitely cases of that, I'm sure. But the majority of people, I think, if you heard their life circumstance, you'd be like, yeah, let's help that person out, right? Think of like grandmothers who suddenly get 5 grandchildren put into their care and they're in their 70s. So what are you going to say? Go to work, grandma? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, and a lot of times they are, but they can't make enough money to support 5 what are now their children.
Well, I think two things can be true.
Well, let me finish here. So there's people like in those circumstances who they were supposed to file. So I was listening to a coverage on this through the New York Times.
Is that the Daily?
The Daily podcast.
Great podcast.
It is a great podcast. They interviewed this lady. It was a very sad story. And she accidentally filed, when she was filing all of her stuff, she was on time and everything. Oh. She accidentally used a form from 2024. She had the one from 2025, but she just accidentally mixed it up. And her request for assistance was denied. She's like, I just don't understand. She called the place, finally got a hold of somebody, and they're like, yeah, you filed the wrong paper from 2024. So, oh, I'm so sorry. I've never done this before. I got the one for 2025 right here. Can I just add that to my, let me check with my boss. No, because she had a 30-day window to do it, and they didn't let her know until day 31 that she wasn't going to get her something like that. So it was impossible. So she doesn't get any assistance now for her and her 5 kids, and she's like in her 70s. She calls every single day. She's called every day for the last 5 months to try and get an appeal.
Man, good for her.
And she doesn't get to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
It's just an answering service every time saying we'll call you back or something like
Yeah.
that. So it is an absolute train wreck what's going on right now with SNAP for a lot of people. And the problem with it getting dumped onto the states to fund is it's so expensive. It's like, I think it's like another $1 billion or something like that for a state to pull onto their budget. I mean, think what $1 billion would do to Iowa. It increased. I mean, think of the amount of taxes that the state would have to put into play, I guess, to fund that.
I think it's important to note that two things are very true, extremely true. One, that is horrible, and that happens. Like people who truly need assistance, they're in a corner, not their own decisions, or maybe they made some decisions, but they're trying to get better and they just need a little hand up.
Do we want to live in a world where it's one strike and you're out?
Yeah, exactly. That is very true. It is also very true, and that this doesn't discount what we just said about that lady. It is also very true that people abuse it. I know people personally that have abused it, and I remember when I was a sophomore, junior in college. I was living in a house, and I ran out of money, and I called my dad, my biological dad, and he's a CPA. He's like tight with money, very frugal guy. I said, hey, I need help, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no. I was like, well, what do you mean? I need help. And he's like, you just gave me a list of 5 reasons, and they all came back to you on why you don't have a job or you haven't figured it out. Or he's like, it's only $300 a month. You need to figure this out. You're a very capable person. And by golly, I did. It sucked. I was so angry off that phone. Now, what percentage is it? I don't think 90% of the people on snaps are screwing the government. I don't think that. Whether it's 2% are screwing the government and 98% really need it, I just think both do happen. And then we have to decide which one are we going to be okay with as a society. Now, I would agree. I would lean in your direction. I'd let more people take SNAP that shouldn't get it to make sure that there aren't any kids anywhere that aren't getting it off without it being their choice. I lean that direction. I just think as a society we got to pick, because we're telling 2 different stories, but they're both true.
Yeah, I just think that the story of, in your case, a 19-year-old able-bodied person who's got time on their hands and no dependents under them to those type of people that are abusing the situation. I think that does happen, I'm sure, but I think it's probably far fewer than the people.
No, I know the social
workers. Well, it sounds like we got to get some data there.
Yeah. Well, I looked into it one time. That's why I don't want to have a SNAP conversation. I'm just saying
your circumstance, a 19-year-old able-bodied person with 0 dependents, not needing government assistance. I just think but is getting it.
No, I'm sorry.
I just think that circumstance probably doesn't apply very often.
No, I'm sorry. My point was that when a wall was presented before me, I figured out how to get
but
through
you had a lot of freedom to get through that wall.
Yes, but
let's just say this: what if you had 3 kids?
Yes, no, I agree with you.
So now you got to have child care.
You're using my anecdotal. I was trying to make it.
You used your anecdotal.
You got to let me finish.
All right.
You got to let me finish, Ken. So my point was that humans are resilient. So take me out of it. I could list 3 families off the top of my head who have bragged to me about being able to get assistance, and they don't need it. You know, and they have, one of them has 1 kid and they have a spouse, so 2 spouses that work and have a kid. Another one that works part-time and told me well, if my spouse goes and gets a job, we won't think of all these assistances we won't get, right? That's a real, and they didn't have any kids. And then my wife worked in social working for a while, and her data is anecdotal, but yeah, we had many conversations, and there was true. She would come home, she'd be like, "It's terrible. This family, they're in a really tight spot," And there were many cases like that. I agree. I just don't want to discredit that there are also many cases that are the opposite. I just want to admit that both are true.
Yeah, but there's a degree of truth by comparing the qualifying circumstances versus the disqualifying circumstances.
Yeah. Riley?
It's almost like this world is filled with shades of gray, and black and white it doesn't quite factor into it.
Yeah.
That's my take. I'm not dipping my toes in that water. you boys have.
You don't want to discredit yourself from being able to get a job somewhere else later.
You boys have pretty well covered, I think, both sides of it. So
I want to tell you a little story about our team here at Hoxie Native Seeds. Years ago, my dad and I were talking. We said, what is the point of this company? We knew that it was conservation. We knew that we were growing seed to help people, but we didn't know where we were going, what we wanted to actually do. Did we want to mostly plant on other people's land? Did we want to mostly grow native seed with high quality ecotypes? Did we want to mostly consult with people? We didn't quite know. So we spent months, literally months, boiling it down. And we came up with this goal, that we want to provide education and native seed for landowners and land managers who care about their neighbors, their investment, and the wildlife around them. Now, of course, with education, you can go to hoxienativeseeds.com, and we've got a huge native plant database. We've got a learning center. We've got tons of podcasts that you can listen to learn some of the stuff from the foremost experts. But for the native seed, that's actually what pays the bills on everything else. So if you need native seed or guidance on your native seed journey, planting a prairie or a wetland or a savanna mix or even a shady mix, remember, our goal is to help you, not just with the native seed, but we want to educate you every step of the way. So we're not just going to ship you seed and ghost you afterwards. We're going to take care of you. We have people that call 3, 4, 5 years later with management questions, and we're here to answer them. That's what we want to do. But it's all paid for by the native seed sale. So go to hoxienativeseeds.com, and we'll talk to you soon. Let me reiterate before we move on that I agree that I would rather some people be able to take advantage of the system and make sure that people are fed. Then I agree with that. I just want to, yeah. All right. So Chris Jones was on the podcast, and he talked to us about ethanol gas. So I actually looked it up a little bit. We had an interview with Tom
Just
Philpott.
bought 18 gallons of, 18.81 gallons of non-ethanol gas this morning.
Beautiful. And you probably paid less for that. Not per dollar, but gallon of energy. Because we connected with Tim Philpott, and he said, well, actually, there's some evidence that it doesn't actually, it's not a net saver. It's a net negative. That's not true. I thought that would be the case. It's not. And I've said on this podcast, I think that ethanol is only like a 1.5 energy. That's not true.
EROEI, energy return on energy invested.
Yes. Yeah. Nice. I have that right here. It is actually somewhere between, ethanol gas is somewhere between 2 and 4, a multiplier of 2 and 4. But the University of, let's see if I can find this in my notes. The University of Minnesota did the only credible survey on this, and basically found out that if you took into account everything that needed to be paid for from corn, you would actually add about $3 ecologically. If you added everything ecologically that needed to be paid for, the vast majority of it being not nitrates in the water, but nitrates in the air that are added, you would be adding about $3.70 per bushel.
Wow.
To the corn is what it would need to be paid for, at which point it is barely break even, corn as a whole. Now, if you get ethanol at the gas station, let's see, I have it right here. E85 needs to be at least 25% cheaper. 25% is about a break even cheaper for how much you're paying for how many miles you're getting per gallon. If you are not, in most places it's not that much cheaper. And so actually, usually if you're using ethanol gasoline, you are paying more. Now, there is an argument to be made about the emissions, but no one has done the study of how the emissions of tractors and combines. Now, people have looked into it, but no one's done like a peer-reviewed full
like how
study.
much emissions we have to get the ethanol.
Yes, exactly. To get it into the ground, the tractor's running around, or let alone, I mean, you would even, I know this sounds stupid, but like on farmsteads, there's a lot of mowing. A lot. And so you'd have to add that in there. There's like all these things that we don't think of. So no one's done a strong peer-reviewed, and I'm willing to bet that there are strong entities in the world that are trying to make sure that no one will do those studies. You know what I mean? It was interesting that the Minnesota study came out and there was no follow-up. It's been several years. There's been no one to disprove it, no one to go ahead and further prove it or to confirm. It's just like a solo one. And normally intelligent policies aren't made off of one study, right? It's a chain of interlinking studies from different universities that are pointing to a truth. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't like ethanol because it's harder on on engines.
You're tired of engines breaking down around here.
And the same, which isn't. I don't think they really use corn as what do they call it, a feedstock for biodiesel. I think that's more soybeans, isn't it?
I think so.
But we've had major problems with like biodiesel and our diesel machinery around here. You know, it's so I don't like it for that standpoint. And then it's efficiency and we're really just talking dollars and cents here, but ecologically the cost of producing so much ethanol is very negative, especially in our state. You know, ethanol has turned already a state that was dominated by the ag industrial complex into just a straight up factory for the ag industrial complex. And you can read things like, I don't know if they still put it in there. It's actually going on right now. The yearly, or maybe it's done now. I think they do it in August. The roadside survey that they do for pheasants and quail and jackrabbits and cottontail rabbits and partridge and stuff like that. They do that every year in Iowa. And our friend Todd Bogenschutz over at Iowa DNR is in charge of that.
Tim Brown's been posting all about it.
Yeah,
the bearded upwinder.
He participates. Yep.
Oh yeah.
And they used to post, I believe, at the beginning of that report, just like, you know, this is how much habitat has changed in Iowa. And it used to be that, so this is back in 2020. I remember it was in there, like I want to say it was between 1996 and, you know, at that time, 2020. Iowa had lost the amount of habitat that would be suitable for those upland species that they were surveying. That would be the same amount of area if you were to go through the I-80 corridor from Davenport to Council Bluffs, so across the width of the state. And if you were to not just go that length, but then stretch that, if you were to make Interstate 80 10 miles wide, that's how much habitat has been lost in Iowa since that time.
Wow.
And a huge part of that, I mean, we changed farming practices in there, you know, as basically since the 70s to get bigger, get out. That was a huge part of that. But the other big bite out of the pie was ethanol. And that's where we started cropping a lot of highly erodible ground, you know, going to the ditch, pulling out fence rows, pulling out hedge rows, just to get every last square inch that is possible. And that even still continues to this day. We know of a spot where literally every tree was cut down on probably a 10-acre piece and is being what seems to be transformed into row crop production. And so that has gone on, and that's been a cost of ethanol.
Yeah, it's interesting because corn's a commodity, and what I'm very interested in, I've been watching Amazon for the past few years. Have you guys watched Amazon Basics?
Where you can buy like all the staples,
like
the
generic brand.
Yeah,
basically.
You know how they decide those?
Just based off what's everybody buying.
What everybody is buying. So their the people who they said, hey, come sell on our platform, they're selling, if you sell 2 million of them a month, well, they're going to be like, well, we'll do those pens and we'll have them cheaper. Yeah. And so Amazon is literally commoditizing.
Yeah, if you
items.
invented a widget and you wanted to sell that widget on Amazon, they would start building the same widget
exactly.
and put Amazon Basics on it.
And sometimes sell it for a loss for a little while just to push you out. And they're Amazon, so they can put it right at the top, right? When you search for the thing. Well, Amazon's literally in the middle of commoditizing things. Who wins in commodities? Only the people who take it all in, store it, and distribute it. Not the buyers, not the sellers, just the people who take it in the middle, because commodities get consolidated. That's part of not how it's supposed to work, but that's how it ends up working. And so with corn's become like such a commodity. Part of that is because of the ginormous demand. Obviously, prices are down, but still, we're talking billions and billions and billions of bushels, and maybe trillions of bushels, billions of tons. Right? Because we're at 2 billion tons over, or maybe we're at 2 billion bushels over.
A lot.
It's a bunch. Yeah. And but I forgot to say the dates. So those energy negative, like back when it was 1.24 to 1 EROEI.
Yep.
That was a study done in 1995. And basically, corn output has increased so much since then that per acre. So we're able to extract more from the ground and more from the sun with our hybrids and our chemicals and our tiling and things of the sort. Now, the Cornell and Berkeley negative energy, those studies were done in 2001, 2005. So again, a long time ago.
2001, 2005. Yeah, that's pre-ethanol.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And so my guess is the infrastructure has been built and made efficient enough that we probably are in the positive. But that doesn't that doesn't count in that Minnesota study where they said, like, look at all the negative effects. Which even, like, I had some friends that wanted to put in a bowling alley in Knoxville, and they didn't end up doing it because the cost of offsetting it with the DNR was going to be insane. Now, am I mad about the red tape? Yes, but am I glad that the DNR is also there looking out for the commons of the general public of Iowa? Yes, I'm glad. Both of those things are how I feel, and that ain't happening with. That didn't happen when ethanol ripped out 8% of Iowa's land. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it's boiled, as Chris Jones argued, it's just boiled down to a regulation thing. That, like, we've decided as a society, or at least the top level has decided, that corn is the way to go. And maybe some of those back end meetings at Cargill are pushing that. Who knows? But corn is the way to go. And so we're going to keep doing it. It does, to me, in some way make sense. I don't think I see the argument. I don't agree with it, is how I would say. Mm-hmm. Like, corn stores forever. That's a good thing.
Yeah, there's a logical thread that can be followed through why we are the way we are. It was just the wrong logical thread.
Yeah. Riley, what do you think?
I think we're at a point where commodity crops aren't going anywhere. Anybody who claims that is probably living in illusion based on the infrastructure that's been built. I would argue, though, that the fundamentals behind crop production are going to keep changing. Diesel's not going to go down. I mean, and if it does, I would imagine temporarily. Anytime humanity's had access to more energy, they don't go, oh, well, I guess we'll just all stay home and do nothing. Usually we end up burning that energy in some way, shape, or form. My guess would be that ethanol is going to have to taper down, though, as we continue to move towards EVs, because that's the logical. I mean, you can say, I hate electric vehicles, I don't want one, I'll never buy one, but the first time that you hop in your buddies in 10 years from now or whatever it is, and you can drive 1,000 miles on one charge and never have to change your oil, humans are creatures of convenience.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to that, I don't see us changing that. My guess would be, hopefully, my hope with commodity crops is that the outcome is that those commodity crops, we're looking more at field treatments, in field and edge of field, to reduce nutrient problems. We continue to do what we've been doing with drones, reduce our over-application of both fertilizer and insecticides, pesticides, herbicides. And because like I said, I don't think the commodity crops are going anywhere, but I think that there's a path forward where we can make the argument that what if we pull 5 million or 2 million acres out of production or whatever it be to save floodplains, and we're going to get the same yield. We're going to get the same yield as we did in 2000 because agronomy in general has made leaps and bounds. And I think it's going to continue to do that.
You said something earlier. We were talking about a totally different topic. We were talking about not the one where Nick is in between two fighting people, but the
different deal.
The one where you said Gen Z doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, and we were talking about just the trends of I think it was content, but I've been thinking a lot since we interviewed Chris Jones. What a great interview, by the way. I listened to it again.
Even if you're not in Iowa, go back, listen to it.
Yeah. And talking about a post-ethanol Iowa, which I agree. I think that's coming. I think if you are thinking that EVs aren't catching on, I would challenge you to do what I accidentally did in my own life, which was take a survey of the people that I know who've bought a car in the last year and how many of those were either a hybrid or a full EV, and it was eye-opening to me. And I think the way forward for Iowa in that circumstance, and Chris really called this out, is young farmers. There's quite a few people who would like to be in farming. I'm sitting next to one of them right now, and I'm one myself. And the way in is not to get into corn and beans. Yeah. Unless somebody just handed you all the infrastructure, all the land, all the equipment,
or you're okay handing the mortgage off to your kids without having it paid off.
Right. Right. And the millions of dollars that takes to be in that game is just it's so huge. So you have to find another way in, right? And when people are put in that circumstance, they get creative. They try to come up with a new way of getting there, right? And I think that Iowa's land is good for growing things, right? Whether that be prairie, whether that be all the cereal grains that we used to produce at one time, all the alfalfa we used to produce at one time, or now all the corn and soybeans that we produce. It is good for growing things. And so I think the vast majority of Iowa's land is going to be used for that. And I don't think we're necessarily going to go to, I'm getting cold right now.
Yeah, it's kind of nice.
I don't think that we're necessarily going to go to a point where people are just saying we're just going to grow a lot of prairie. I do think people will be more inclined to do that. Like I think that 50 years from now, Minnesota's buffer law is going to be our law here in Iowa. It makes too much sense, and people aren't going to be as married to the corn and soybean thing. I mean, what's the average age of a corn and soybean farmer right now in Iowa? Like 60 years old, roughly, right?
90, 80.
So 50 years from now, those people will have been dead for a long time, and the people that wanted to be farming will not have that attachment to a corn and bean model. So the landscape, the trend is going to change, and I think we will see more good conservation cover on the land for some of those acres. But I also think that people are going to be interested in getting back into livestock.
Yeah,
But to Riley's point, the infrastructure is still there for corn and beans, but I think we'll be growing more corn and beans to grind for feedlot usage in the wintertime for cattle and for maybe even hogs. You know, what would be interesting is what happens to confinements. I don't necessarily see those going away, but I definitely think we're going to get more cattle here, and the market's there because we import so much beef that if we can have some change in public perception first and foremost, right, where I want to get my cow from Iowa as opposed to Argentina. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with Argentina, it's just they're not my neighbor.
Yeah.
And it makes more sense from a energy cost to get my cow from my neighbor than it does to get my cow from Argentina. And so that's first and foremost, but also some favorable legislation, whatever that looks like, to make it more efficient financially, more efficient energy-wise, more economical. Even maybe sometimes it's pulling away some of the regulations to make more sense to buy your neighbor's cow. And I think that as that stuff changes, we're going to that's young farmers are going to be what a post-ethanol Iowa is determined to be.
Interesting.
Well, and what's going to remain to be seen is either by choice or by economics, I think livestock agriculture in a traditional sense has to return to Iowa, because if you look west, the amount of acres it takes to run one cow in Arizona is wildly different than Nebraska, and it's wildly different than here. And all you have to do is look at the water restrictions, the water crises. The people who own these businesses out west, some of them have long history doing it in their family, and some of them are in it to make money. Mm-hmm. And when the dollars and cents aren't there, what are they going to do? Are they going to completely go out of business? Are they going to go, well, maybe we got to go east a little bit? There's water east. Now, economically, our bottom line is raising cattle in Iowa or Nebraska or Minnesota.
And we're already in a position where, as we learned from Chris once again, what was it? 60% or something like that of our 60% of our farmland, is that what it was, is farmed
by the owner.
By the owner.
Yeah.
So I mean, we already are in this investment model, to Riley's point, that if you are a ranch investor, like, you just stop looking at land that's coming up for sale in Wyoming and eastern Montana. You start looking at what's for sale in Iowa, and because you're following the water.
That
as
worries me more than anything culturally.
But
in
it
Iowa.
also leads to, though, more cows on the landscape in Iowa.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm saying just factually.
I agree. I agree with that. I think that would help Iowa's conservation.
I'm not saying one way. I'm not saying positive or negative. I'm just saying realistically, I think that Riley's point is very valid.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we're about to hand. This is not just in farming, but there's a lot of equity that's about to be handed that's about to be transferred. We will have to fight very hard to make sure it's transferred to young farmers. Otherwise, it's going to corporate farms, right? And nothing worries me culturally for Iowa more than that exact thing. Now, but I agree with you. I think no matter what, whether it's young farmers or corporate farmers, there's going to be a lot of cattle.
Yeah, the only way that transfer just doesn't continue being ethanol, right, is if the market for ethanol goes away. And I think that there is a way to see that happening. Something else to pair in there is everyone who's very close to the tech bros out there, right, that are very close to AI development and what they're projecting with that as far as it translates to the economy, are saying they're talking about people working less, right? And I do think that if people have more money in their pocket and less hours at work, and we've talked before on this podcast that we're already in a successful enough economy, not saying that there's not huge wealth disparity and things like that people are concerned about, but I think the average person in America has enough resources that, or even enough of the companies are able to operate with people not from the moment they're clocked in to the moment they clocked out working their tail off.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go into a museum, a state museum, there's somebody sitting at the desk and they answer the phone maybe 5 times a day and they're getting paid for 8 hours of work. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just because it's not busy, you know. But
Kent's not picking on museum people. We actually watched that happen once.
Yeah.
So
there's anytime you see like some kind of
podcast. I mean, those people probably don't work.
The fact that you can do a podcast, right, is in some way the result of we have a lot of the foundation built for universal basic income is what I'm getting at. You drive by work crews working in the ditch somewhere, 2 guys working, 5 guys scrolling.
Oh yeah.
All the time.
Oh yeah.
That's universal basic income that you're watching it. That those 5 guys
And
scrolling
you're
are
saying
getting
why not
paid
have a robot do that and those guys can just stay
that's
home?
what I think that's what the tech bros are getting at, right? And so my point is, if people are working less, have more money in their pocket, people are going to be growing food at a loss.
Yeah.
Because like I do with my hogs, I'm not saving money. A lot of people are like, oh, you're not going to save any money on those hogs. That's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I can get something that I can't get otherwise.
Yeah.
I can't go to the grocery store and get what I'm raising in my yard.
I got some of the farmers market this weekend. Bacon. It was only $9.99 for a pound, which compared to $6.99 for quality bacon
Yeah.
at the store anyway is not that much more expensive. Oh, it was so good.
Right.
It was
Exactly. That's
unbelievable.
that's why I'm doing it. You know, is
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a different thing.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think that not in a huge way, but I think you'll see more of those small farm practices, just as we have over the last 10 years. You'll see more people having a cow, more people having a milk cow, more people raising a couple hogs, more people with chickens, more people.
Yeah.
I think that kind of and that
That'll
will
be what fills
play
people's
out.
time.
Well, some.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
And I don't
Part
think
of
and I
it,
don't
yeah.
think it's going to replace ethanol by any means,
Yeah.
but I think it'll be a piece of the puzzle as
Yeah.
to what
And
does
we'll still put our
what does a
headsets on
post
and get into
ethanol
a-
Iowa look like? Yeah.
Get into a VR fictional
Yeah.
world like Ready Player One. Well, I want to make sure I mention
Riley
this
had
part.
something to say, and it's
Yeah,
important.
I was,
to Riley,
gonna,
so
I was
yeah.
just gonna say, I hope that you're right, Kent. But the thing that gives me a little bit of trepidation is I remember around COVID, the homestead movement really kicked off.
Yeah.
And the number of people who homesteaded, and this is not to take anything out of anybody. I know it's a lot of work, but the amount of people who bounced off homesteading
Yeah.
and moved back to the burbs.
Yeah, that's
I think there's a natural selection process like what led families to decide, oh, well, I live in Dusseldorf and I don't really like it, so I'll go
Right.
across the ocean and hopefully I'll raise some chickens.
Right.
There's going to be a selection process where we're going to have to find the people that really.
well, I think naturally it'll filter though too,
Yeah.
right? 10 years ago, I wasn't working on a farm.
Yeah.
I wanted to be, but
Yeah.
but as generations change and as land use changes and as markets change, it filters the people into the right places. And I think I don't envision a world really where Riley isn't living on a farmstead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's other Rileys out there, and there's and those people are going to find their way back. You know?
Yeah, I was just pointing more toward like the adversity. It's
Yeah.
going to be a bumpy
It's a
ride.
big-
We're going to
it's a
get
big
there.
learning
Yeah,
curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if
The-
you're at work 25 hours a week instead of 40,
you got time. Yeah.
the path of least resistance, the psychological like desire for least resistance is unbelievably strong. Like stronger
Yeah.
than any addiction. And as a society, we have chosen it every single time.
You know, example where we have not though,
Where?
working out. There are far more people in gym shape, not from. I mean, go back to the 1970s. Nobody's fat because food wasn't as abundant, and there was way more blue collar like manual labor going on. Right,
Even just more walking. In
right,
general.
right.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that. I'm not comparing that, but I'm comparing in 2005 the average number of jack guys walking around on the sidewalk in Chicago was way less than what it is today.
Yeah.
Look at how many gyms there are. Every town has multiple gyms in it now.
I think it's because we path of least resistance ourselves so far into one direction. It's literally humanity
we
fighting back.
we pay to go do work. But for whatever reason, the motivating thing, right? I think it's probably social media. People want to look good.
Yeah.
Right? Remember how many people went back in the digital camera age? You just see people with the digital
Yeah.
camera doing selfies all
Yeah,
the
and
time.
I
One
think
megapixel doesn't really capture.
It's probably not a good motivator, but it is an example of where people, for the right carrot, are willing to take the path of more resistance.
Yeah, I would just say as a society, that's not the trend. You couldn't convince me that Iowa's average BMI is going down. Now there are.
I would say sure, but I would say the number of people that are running on a treadmill in Iowa has gone up, and the number of people that are bench pressing on a Smith machine every morning have gone up.
I'm looking at the graph longer scale.
Once again, we should just find data. Number of people gym memberships now compared to 2005.
Yeah, but those same people, they want their gym air conditioned. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not
as a
saying it's
whole-
all. I'm just saying there is a little bit of light.
I need to talk about solar.
I feel like we've solved the world's problems already.
I don't know. I feel like feisty. So if Iowa decided, hey, we're going to grow corn for energy, that's okay, because that's kind of what we do. 60%. We looked it up a couple of years ago. It was 57%. It might have changed since then. Of corn goes to energy. Well, this is a pretty cool stat. 1 acre of corn can get your car 12,000 miles. That's pretty good at Iowa's current average of 210. 1 acre of
Halfway around the
solar
world.
over 1 million miles. So it is not even close.
Yeah.
On it, so if we decide, hey, we're an energy state, we produce energy, well then, dude, rip up the corn and put down solar. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just admit you do corn because you want to, not because you're solving problems.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway,
What do you sense is a common thing that you'll see put out there is you'll see someone charging their car in the desert at a charging station, and then you'll see a big diesel powered generator connected to the charging station, right? So obviously that might be a step towards improvement, right? It's just sometimes the intermediate steps don't make a lot of sense, but it's where you got to be to get to here, right? It's kind of like when you're building a house. For a time being there, you got to put plastic over the windows because you don't have your brand new Pella windows installed yet. But eventually you will, and it will be better, right?
yeah.
So what do you guys see as being like when we're past those intermediate steps, the delegitimizing problems that the EV solar world has to get past to where everyone can agree, yeah, this is better than ethanol and biodiesel for everything?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of like, but that's farmers' job. You're going to take their job. I think there'll be a lot of that, which is that's just an emotional argument, right? And then copper. Copper is going to be a huge issue. Moving those electrons from the solar panels to whatever battery generator, blah blah blah. I heard once, I don't know how true this is, that there's plenty of lithium. The hard part is that it's not concentrated. So if someone could somehow figure out how to scrape the top of the ground and pull just the lithium that's in it, it's not that we lack for lithium, it's that we lack for the large deposits that are easier to mine. I don't know how true that is. But I think the copper and the batteries are going to probably be our big. Those will be real infrastructure things. And we're over here, more solar. I would like more solar. I've talked about that here on the pod. And then I'm probably going to put my foot in my mouth when I go, but I don't want you to dig copper around, the boundary waters, And so there's another place where I want my cake and I want to eat it too.
Yeah.
So those will probably be some issues we'll have to wrestle with as a society coming up. Unfortunately, we're having to wrestle with it right now.
Yeah, I think those are similar to, and then also the manufacturing of the panels themselves and the disposal of something that is now we aren't
a forever
necessarily
chemical.
putting carbon into the atmosphere, which is the byproduct of burning all these fossil fuels, right? But we are going to be, like you're saying, these polymers that are super, super durable, things that kind of shatter and flake apart after they wear out from the solar radiation and stuff. Riley, what do you foresee?
I think it's a story as old as time, incremental change. The reason that I just watched, I think it was a piece on solar energy in Spain or Portugal, one of the two, and they've been incrementally moving towards solar, and they had an event where some of the infrastructure needed wasn't there, and they had a big blackout, and it was this big pain. But now, as a society, they're investing in that. I think that, the copper is an issue, the lithium is an issue, but I think as humans, we developed a work around it, and it's just incrementally something that we can't really truly grasp. If you told somebody in 1905 that, okay, yeah, you're driving a Model T, but we're going to have a car you can buy for inflation-wise relatively the same, and it's going to be 1,000 times better in 50 years. It's something we as humans aspire to but can't really grasp. Is how the pace of change. The fact that there was color TV 50 years ago was like, this modern marvel.
What's that phrase? It never changes as much in the next 5 and always changes more than you think in the next 20. And I don't know. It does look back 20 years ago.
I could see trust busting being really important. Again, you know what I mean? Because
what do you mean trust busting?
Well, just like where you don't have. So right now we have like hyper consolidation in ag, right? And it's led to all the problems we're talking about.
Yeah, like the SEC. Yeah.
So just, I mean, it sounds like a country bumpkin Iowa guy here, but like I use the example of tractors lately is what I've been thinking of. Like there used to be 1 million tractor manufacturers, and then it channeled down to like 5 now, right? Yep. And we can look at that and be like, man, it was so much better when there were 25 different brands of tractors, and maybe it was. But in where the market controls it, type way of looking at things, right? Where if you make tractors the best and you have you're the farthest, deepest in the black at the end of each fiscal year, and you want to start buying your competitors and, taking their market share away and making it yours, that'll just happen with like these. And I think it already, from what I've heard, has already started to happen with a lot of these solar companies. Is it's one company going to get the lease on the land to put their panels up, and then boom, they're bought out by another solar company. And so I think that as we hit this big turning of the page on American energy usage and global energy usage, I think it would be wise to try and get that part of it right. And by saying that, I'm not saying we don't allow companies to consolidate, but just be really intentional about when we do allow them to do so, that we don't just create the same problems again for a new industry. That leads to the suffering that we complain about on this podcast every episode.
I think it's a pendulum. If you look back at the robber barons in the 20s, we've been here before,
right?
And
that's my point.
We're about to repeat that again, where we need to actually use antitrust legislation. Right. It's been largely toothless for the past 25 years.
Right.
Lena Khan was pretty. But she didn't have any momentum behind her.
Well, she did her best. I'm not saying
she was a voice in the wilderness.
Well, and she prevented a lot of big tech merging.
Yeah, what was the big one? Microsoft wanted to add.
No,
or
Adobe.
Google?
It was Adobe.
Okay, yeah.
It was Adobe and something else, and then there was maybe one other big one from Google.
Yeah,
they were trying to. Oh no! It was Google was going to be split up. She set that all up. Google, that she was like, all right, Google has a monopoly. We're splitting you up. I think it was, we're going to split YouTube off, and we're going to split Android business off.
That's what it was. Yeah.
But when it came down to it, and I think it was after Trump was in office, the judge finally got down to it, and maybe this had nothing to do with Trump's influence being in office, but the judge was like, well, AI is now here, and that's going to take a lot of your market share. So we'll come back to this in 10 years because AI. I mean, it could, like, people are using ChatGPT instead of Google, but I see none of Google's monopoly falling away on the things that it has monopolized.
Right.
And so who knows? Maybe the judge was just like making it. The logic makes sense to me, but could have been some things were said behind the scenes.
Yeah, could be.
Know. Yeah. Well. I'm sorry for everyone who got to work and then had to finish this podcast on the way home. Instead of, our tagline on Coffee Time Wednesday on some of the first ones was the best 15 minutes of your day.
The longest 15 minutes of your life.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Like when
just stretch time around here, okay?
Hey, do you have a quick minute to talk? That's what this podcast is. Hey, don't forget, if you've got any questions on Prairie, go to the forum. We are in the middle of harvest, so we're going to start, like last year, keeping you updated on what we're doing here on the farm. Starting over the next several weeks. I will be gone for the next 2 weeks. You will not see us on YouTube.
Big LARPing convention in Northern California.
This week, Rob Sand's podcast drops, and in the next couple weeks, we've got really awesome podcasts on Fridays, but it'll be Kent and Riley and whatever guests they invite for the next couple Coffee Time Wednesdays. I know, obviously, viewership will
deeply dive. But prove me wrong. Show me that I'm the
fewer
least
fights.
interesting person. Yeah, there will be fewer fights. Oh, man. Love both of you guys as my co-hosts and love all of you who are listening. We'll talk to you again next time.